Look at this one. I don't know. I'm not convinced yet.
Oh God.
Here we go. Pothole.
Oh God, yeah.
With some steep edges.
Okay.
This might be my favorite one I've ever seen.
This is the Grand Coulee, the Lower Grand Coulee to be precise. Gorgeous hanging valleys coming in from the west. You are looking west, the west wall of Lower Grand Coulee. And I'm not alone. Hello, Jordan Carey, Volume 2. Thank you for joining us today. Where are we headed today, Jordan?
We are headed up the Great Blade.
Which is like right over here, I guess. But like I've only been over across the Great Blade once. You never have. So why don't you lead us into temptation here? Let's go. Thank you. Another Thursday, another round of thinking. And we might go back and forth, thinking things out as we see them or not. I'm not sure, Jordan. We can do what we want. I brought some Bretz stuff with me to have us add a few things. I'm surprised right off the bat.
Yeah, me too. I was expecting to be on top.
Yes.
Maybe we've got a little more ways to go.
And if we do, is there a slot there or is there a slot up ahead? I guess.
This looks pretty.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess, well.
So, viewers, as we walk here, the Great Blade is unknown to many. Like if you watch a Bruce Bjornstad video, he's fond of the Great Blade. J. Harlan Bretz was fond of the Great Blade, featured prominently in his Grand Coulee book published in 1932, but it's not really a landmark that most people realize as they drive down the Grand Coulee, including Jordan the last couple of years and including me for most of my time here. But in addition to the blade itself, and I think it's just like it sounds, there's this whole scabland set of features on the east side of the Great Blade. And that's what we want to try to get a feeling for today. So we just parked on the shoulder of the road in the Grand Coulee and we're just kind of wandering. Well, you were saying in the video last week, what were you saying about visualizing water and the width of a flood channel with Grand Coulee and Moses Coulee and Drumheller, just to clue us into that discussion from last Thursday.
I think I was just thinking about, well, I was thinking about how much water is, like when the next flood comes down, how much water is actually, is it all contained kind of thing?
Is it contained? Yeah.
And the way I was thinking about it last week, I was envisioning it all being contained, probably in my mind, like, and previously for sure, maybe not last week, but in between this wall and, you know, this Great Blade here.
It's a natural thought.
And not realizing we've got more stuff over here.
We got leakage.
Yeah.
So it's common, I think, for almost everybody driving down the Lower Grand Coulee, this shot right here, to imagine two matching walls and a total containment of even the biggest Ice Age floods. Oh, there's an actual trail here. What the hell? Let's go. Damn. Somebody's been up here. So what's the itinerary for Saturday with your 188 group?
Still working on it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I've got ideas. My general flow is going to be kind of maybe starting at Frenchman and working our way up to Dry Falls where we're going to be camping. Spending some time on Saturday hiking around Dry Falls. And then on Sunday, and on that Saturday, maybe giving them kind of the traditional Ice Age floods, Missoula floods story.
Good.
And then maybe on Sunday going around and messing around in Moses Coulee and try and throw some curveballs possibly, see who can pick up on things. We'll see. It's going to be an experiment.
Well, it might work because you have mostly geology students.
We do. We got more geology students than probably normal percentage-wise.
No pilots in the group at all. It's going to be beautiful.
Pilots are in 2 weeks. They're coming.
Okay.
That's the loose plan right now. I've got time to plan. Sure.
Yeah, if I see you during the Friday noon talk working on something, I'll know what you're working on. If you're not into Italian ice cores, okay, that's fine. I'm trying to figure out how much coffee to bring. Do you bring a bunch of stuff for your students, like supplies, groceries, or whatever? How do you?
Yeah, we bring them a couple meals. We bring some stoves and some tacos. Usually, is a really easy field food.
Tacos on Saturday night.
That's mostly agreeable to almost everyone.
Sure.
Customize the way you like.
The Grand Coulee, J. Harlan Bretz, American Geographical Society, that's the fancy outfit in New York, who published and came through for Bretz beautifully in 1928. It's a map of the Scablands I continue to use. But then 4 years later, they published this Grand Coulee, publication number 15. Skip it. Feast your eyes. I'm going to film you as you observe.
Oh gosh.
He's got 2 valleys.
There's Zentner Lake, yep. So we're like looking north.
Looking north. We are here.
Mm-hmm.
Or even up on the blade itself. But he's got a pre-glacial synclinal valley where the hanging valleys coming in from the west are heading for this valley center.
Yeah, not in here.
Not in here. So he's saying this is a glacial monoclinal channel versus a pre-glacial synclinal valley. So I think what he's saying is that before the Ice Age, both sides had tributary values coming in from the side, fine. There were some Ice Age floods that came through this early pre-glacial valley, but much of the damage was eroding the columns that are flexed with this monocline. It's like a weak area where we're bending, and that's where the Lower Grand Coulee is getting carved.
Pretty low.
There's always a super male people in the group that you have. Oh yeah, that's a AK-47. They're coming from Fairchild over at Spokane. Yeah, they do this every day. At, what time is it? Yeah, 1:47. Yeah, absolutely.
How about that visual? That's pretty.
Not loud. It's a lot louder. I don't know why. Some cactus?
Yeah. I was frantically trying to get a picture of that guy. It's all right. I was born in a cactus.
Okay. Jordan and I walking south. We may or may not be on the Great Blade. We're not sure. But my question to you, young man, since we're both essentially new here, what do you want to see the most? Rate the features that interest you the most. A, potholes. B, Great Blade in its most elegant, beautiful state. C, hanging valleys connecting. Well, here's a fucking pothole right here. Forget it. Sorry, Patrick. I just aborted our
So
quiz.
we got A. A is the answer.
I'm thinking back to other reactions when I had camera people out here who knew nothing about the floods, and we're seeing all these features, big and small. And one guy in particular, Rick, kept saying, water did that? Like, you're literally saying that water like lifted rock up and out?
See, I feel like for that reaction to hit, if you haven't seen like what a normal pothole looks like, I'd be so confused on how is this forming? How can water do that? But
maybe
I mean, even if you have seen a normal pothole in a normal bedrock river, I mean, I feel like that's when it's like, holy cow.
Well, those still confuse me too, to be totally honest.
Oh yeah, it's a weird, like the drilling, carrying
yes.
like little bits of sand, whatever.
Yes. I mean, how many of us can really see fluid hydraulics and all that? I mean,
yeah, and then to do it on this scale.
To do it on this scale. So if you have a hole in Florida, then you go, okay, just a sinkhole with a bunch of limestone. But if you have 100 of these holes in the middle of this landscape, you need somebody like J. Harlan Bretz to kind of say, look, this is all these little local features that you keep seeing, they're all part of a much larger story that I'm battling everybody in my professional life about. Yeah. Okay, so you saw a pothole, check. I think you and I, let's hear your thoughts on it, but we're looking up the Grand Coulee right now. Dry Falls is the very far skyline, kind of around the corner to the right. And I think we're here, Jordan, and primarily because we want to get a glimpse of where the true center of this valley was before the Ice Age. That's new to everybody, new to me as recently as this winter, new to you, because were you teaching last year as you drove down this road? I was. That these are hanging valleys.
Yeah, and they're meeting kind of at the center of what we can see here in front of us.
And you weren't going to Moses Coulee, but I was doing exactly the same thing in Moses Coulee, which is accurate. Mm-hmm. And so as we're driving up here today, you're like, are we going to see the matching set and the matching high cliff and the matching streams coming in from the east? And the answer is yes and no, I guess.
It's unsatisfying.
It is. Aren't you glad you came?
Because, well, I mean, you got Moses Coulee in the back of your head.
That's satisfying.
So satisfying.
Once upon a time, everybody, before the Ice Age, 2.6 million years ago, there was a landscape here. I don't think we saw hardly any of this basaltic rock. Instead, we had graceful rolling hills that were mantled with loess. And a remnant of that pre-glacial landscape is up there high, above where those white birds are circling. And then we lose it. And then this skyline on the far distance over there is a continuation of that pre-glacial, gentle, undulating set of landforms. And what happened during the Ice Age? We carved the Grand Coulee to interrupt that side from this side. But wait, if we spin around and we try to do the same thing, the light is a little better. We can see up high the pre-glacial side streams coming in, and we're at a vista where we can see the pre-glacial side streams coming in from the other. Not as satisfying, Jordan, not as satisfying, but I think it's confident that Bretz covered all of that on foot and he saw that things were draining this way as well. And we're seeing that the former center of the valley, a synclinal valley, because there's a little bit of a fold in here, is where my finger is right now, which is to this side of the Great Blade, right up the guts of the pre-glacial, you want to call it, Grand Coulee River? I don't know. All right, the Grand Coulee River Valley coming right through here. So in my answer, why is the Great Blade important? The Great Blade is just one little remnant that's left of a bunch of bedrock that continued from the skyline all the way to the center of the synclinal valley, and everything's been chewed away except for that great blade, and therefore we have deep flood scouring on both sides of the great blade, never mind the fact that it's a deeper hole to the west of the great blade because that's where the monocline was located. What would you say? Why would you ever mention the great blade on Saturday to your geology students?
I think
Geology 180.
Well, it's not some big picture. I would mention it to them as we're driving through here, whether we stop here or not.
Yep.
That the Great Blade is an island in the middle of a larger scene.
A larger scene on both sides.
On both sides. I'd plan on emphasizing that.
An island in a sea of scabland.
Yeah.
There's just as much scabland east of the Great Blade than west of the Great Blade. But we can't see it because we're down there on the highway, down too low.
Why are we too low?
Why are we too low, says the geology student. Why would we be lower here? What's the difference?
Great question. Let's continue driving and maybe we'll see something structurally up ahead. It's good to see these areas though.
Yeah.
I mean, because this has that kind of, when you get out of the coulees and you get into the scablands, that's really, I may have mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
When you really start to, at least for me, really start to visualize or attempt to visualize or the complexities of all of this. It's too clean in the coulees. It's not too clean in the coulees. It's great in the coulees to visualize ice age floods, but here is where it's, and Drumheller, where it's messy and
it's too simple in the coulees.
Yeah,
it seems too simple in the coulees.
It does.
It's almost
it can be deceptive. It can be deceptive, and oh yeah, this is a. I understand this all. This is great. This is easy. Lots of water coming down here, cutting out this nice big coulee. But then you get into places like this, and it's and Drumheller.
That's interesting.
And I said it last week, but it's definitely, it hits harder. The story of how wild it is.
Yeah, ice age flood. Yeah, I can do it 50 miles an hour just driving through the Grand Coulee.
Exactly. Right.
What more is there to think about?
Right.
And then you go, okay, well,
look at this.
How many square miles of this is there with potholes this size? This is one pothole of hundreds of potholes. And like you say, the complexities. Okay, I'll play off of that. If you have water confined to a coulee, it's maybe easier to visualize massive erosion and plucking off the floor. But my God, if we've got a broad open area, why the hell would we be doing any digging?
Right.
Wouldn't we be just more prone to skimming over the top and heading south?
Yeah.
And yet here they are.
I like how this one's kind of opened up here.
Yeah.
It starts to make you wonder about I mean, you go and you see all these nice little, relatively speaking, potholes like the one we just saw earlier.
Right.
But then you see these other landscapes that, like, okay, this was a pothole, but then something else happened, or, you know, not headward erosion or anything, but like, two things are happening here, right?
Two things.
Two things are happening here. It's not as simple as just a hole in the ground, and that two things and three things is happening all over this complicated landscape. And how much of it is like, yeah, water's flowing and plucking like you kind of envision in a coulee, versus how much is drilling down into these potholes. But then clearly something else is happening here, whether it's a geologic control or
can we have multiple floods and we merge two potholes?
Yeah,
like
merging two potholes, exactly.
And then it's like a gradual development of some of these things, as opposed to Bretz's one flood and everything's being formed with one massive event. let's be clear, these are cataclysmic floods. We're not saying it's not floods, but that's another thing that you start rolling around, that not everything has to happen in a week.
Right. No, I guess I kind of thought, I was envisioning, when I saw this wormy landscape,
yeah,
I was maybe kind of envisioning what was happening at Drumheller. Flows coming down.
Yeah.
And just plucking and eroding within the flow, right? For most of this worminess. And then, okay, for some reason we've got some potholes for some weird hydraulics that have happened in these certain areas that I don't really care to think about too much right now. But really, it seems more and more as we're walking around here and seeing a couple of these, that this whole area was just formed by a ton of different potholes that are now coalescing into kind of larger looking features, giving this wormy texture.
I like that. I like that you're not only using what we saw an hour ago, but you're using what we saw a week ago. It's a sign of a smart person, Jordan. Why the potholes here?
Yeah, why the potholes here? That's my question right now.
Why the potholes? It's not Grand Rod and Drumheller. Those are the youngest lavas that have, you saw the columns.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't better columns than last week at Drumheller. But we're not going to get potholes when you can pluck those columns away like toothpicks. There's no resistance.
Right.
I might be out to lunch, but I think we're saying that anytime we have potholes, there's much more stubborn basalt for flood erosion.
So there's some geologic control to where the potholes are occurring.
Seems like it.
I guess I'm really starting to think of like the hydraulics of what it takes to start drilling these out versus just let the water go downhill kind of thing.
Right.
So why start drilling here?
Okay, here's another thought. I'm not sure there are potholes in the floor of the Grand Coulee. I think most of them are up on these benches. Same with over by West Bar. The potholes are up on Babcock Bench below the Gorge Amphitheater stage, but they're not on the lowest part of the landscape. Wouldn't you think the potholes would be, well, not necessarily, but I think that's true. I think the Ford 150 blue truck is right at the base of Dry Falls, right over by Deep Lake. If you take your guys over there, you drive right by one of these gorgeous potholes.
Yep. And it was up high.
I guess it's up high.
It was. I think so. I felt like
it's not the floor.
Yeah, you're not the floor. You've come up a little bit, and then you hike up a bit from that turnoff.
But at least that pothole that Tom Foster loved made sense, because you're right at the base of frickin' Dry Falls. Of course you're going to be pounding the hell out of that rock.
Right.
But why are we pounding the hell out of this rock?
Right.
Out in Sunstroke Acres. We're not confined to the coulee. We're not even confined to the coulee. We're in the frickin' pre-glacial synclinal whatever. This most modest, graceful landscape, it appears, is getting hammered, Jordan.
Yeah. Again, with the complexities. It's more confusing over here than it is in the coulees.
So why did we come? Why do we keep going to these complex areas?
Complex for me.
Complex for me too. Next time we do this on a Thursday afternoon, we go to the middle of a rolling wheat field and just sit there and go, there's nothing going on here. And that'll feel great.
Will it?
No, it'll be a colossal waste of time.
The most peculiar topography of the Lower Coulee is in that part containing Lake Lenoir and the remnant of the pre-glacial synclinal drainage way.
I'm listening. Yeah, we got both in sight.
The lake occupies part of the canyon eroded in and along the monocline.
Got it.
Its surface is less than 1,100 feet above sea level. Its depth unknown. The floor of the synclinal valley remnant is considerably higher, ranging from 200 feet above the lake at the south end to nearly 400 feet at the north end.
Yep.
Both channels are strongly marked by scabland features, but notably different.
Oh, it's a page turner.
In character. The higher eastern channel has cataract ledges across it 50 to 70 feet high, rock basins in its floor 100 feet deep, and a maze of minor anastomosing channels and buttes. Need to read out loud more.
Yeah,
It's kind of fun.
It is, isn't it? Nor was a monoclinal canyon channel developed during the first stage of glacial discharge. While the upper Coulee Cataract retreated 11 miles from the monocline, the eastern channel here carried all the water to the... Okay, so he says originally, he's got some... Okay, is he really saying that? He's saying it's wet over here in the eastern channel for a while before we even start thinking about carving the Grand Coulee. I guess that's what he's saying, the Lower Grand Coulee. He's like, the water's coming down the upper Coulee, and we retreat the waterfall 11 miles from the monocline, but the eastern channel here carried all the water to the Quincy Basin. The western margin may have been somewhat west of the median ridge, now dividing the two spillways. Western margin may have been somewhat west. Don't get it. But the flexed and broken basalt in the monoclinal slope was safe from attack.
Huh.
Then occurred that unbelievable increase in volume. Oh, wow. Many times as much water came roaring down the spillway. It rose on preglacial slopes, hitherto unattached, and those on the west proved exceptionally vulnerable. Scabland making was everywhere, largely a matter of plucking. The broken basalt in the monocline yielded to the... I thought he was a Spokane flood guy. Are we late enough in his studies where he's coming up with 2 or 3 different floods coming through here?
Certainly sounds like it there.
He's got the oldest being smaller, then the older being biggest, and then the youngest being smaller again? Huh, 1932. That. His last publication until the 50s. That's pretty fun.
Oh yeah, look at that picture right there. It needs to be bigger.
Okay, so there's another way to say why this is important. If I understood that, I have to reread that about 42 more times. But he's got the earliest floods coming through here and only coming through here.
And only when the volume of the floods got bigger? Is that what he said?
I think before the biggest floods, whatever phrase he had.
And then only when the volume got bigger did it start.
Only when we really turn the faucet on that we start the attack.
Look at this one. I don't know. I'm not convinced yet.
Oh God.
Here we go. Pothole.
Oh God, yeah.
With some steep edges.
Okay.
This might be my favorite one I've ever seen.
Wow.
Right? It's a good one. But think, a couple more floods, and that whole wall over there is gone.
Okay.
And it's looking like this guy over here.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not off the pothole thing. This to me still kind of seems like a landscape of coalescing potholes. Look right here, Nick. 2 potholes. And here's the last remaining bit. One there and one here that have now coalesced into this channel-like looking thing.
I believe you.
Right? And there's kind of our last, there was that little kind of ridge through there at some point.
So can you do that all in one flood?
No.
That's another theme here. If we're thinking of the whole scablands and saying, are we really making huge coulees and also laying down graceful sediments all at the same time or within very, very few years from each other? It's seeming like more and more that is less likely.
Can I ask a really dumb question?
Yeah.
No one thinks that there's really just one flood at this point. Is that safe to say?
It's safe to say everyone agrees there's more than one flood, but there are many of the leading Ice Age floods geologists think that all of the digging and the deposits and everything happened in the span of like 3,000
right.
years. And that's really what I'm asking right here. Is this forming smaller potholes, bigger potholes, coalescing potholes, then doing a bunch of cutting nearby and having it be much lower in elevation than this? Oh, that's right, we're getting off the synclinal valley and we're going to go attack the monocline. We're doing all that in 3,000 years? And they say, yeah, that's what the dates say. I'm like, well, yeah, we have some dates from some floods between 19,000 and 16,000 years, I agree. But why are we saying that's the whole story?
My journey with, and I think it seems like everyone's, and this was kind of the theme of your talks in A to Z and kind of what Jerome's been on to lately, is we went from struggling so hard, we're in this old school uniformitarianism mindset, right? It takes so much effort for Bretz to convince everyone that big floods are a possibility.
Yes.
And then we peak, right? Eventually, well, whenever everyone accepted this, much later in his life, right? We peak, and we're all catastrophists. And now it seems like just ever so slightly we're like coming around just a little bit. I feel like I'm on a much shorter journey here, but I feel like I've done that arc very quickly in the past 2 years or whatever, where I'm wanting to put more floods and more time. And maybe some people will say I'm just jumping. I'm not actually ever going to the full catastrophist phase. Maybe you could argue that as well. But I feel like I did experience it a little bit, but now I'm already like, I want to put more generations of floods and more time. Maybe I'm being too influenced by your recent endeavors. I don't know. But well, it's just, I feel like with Jerome's, like with what Jerome's doing and with Moses Coulee, right? I just worry that for me to be saying something like that when I only know so little, how could I possibly go on that journey of from in such a short amount of time, you know?
Oh, we got some erratics, young fella.
You got an eye.
Got some granites. Grand Coulee Dam at least. Kind of rounded. I wonder if they got rolled in here. This one's not granite.
No.
The quartzite? Slate? Is it really basalt? I'm not sure it is.
I don't think it's basalt. It's not basalt.
You might need a photo of that. Not to tell you what to do or anything.
No,
the lighting's
good.
Perfect right here. The wall of the Grand Coulee behind you. think we need an iceberg for that guy. It's too angular. I think this is argillite.
We got pieces of it all around it too.
Now, we can talk ourselves into mud cracks in Glacier Park.
Yeah.
This could be Rocky Mountain stuff. This could be true Missoula. This could be the ice dam in northern Idaho.
It's perched.
Right here at the top. Yeah. God, I really do like the way you're doing this. You're remembering all those elements from last week and you're carrying them right over here. That's really impressive.
Well, that's really all I have to do. It's such a unique landscape that you don't learn about in the textbooks. So you see in bits and pieces of it. You're making a story in one place, then you go see a new one, and does that story fit? Is it different? Why doesn't this look like Drumheller? Why doesn't Drumheller look like this?
And you
what are the differences between Moses and Grand?
Yes. You're doing it in the best possible way. A slideshow's not going to help you really. A bunch of science papers aren't going to help you really because you have no idea where these places are or whatever. This is maybe the best way to do it. Maybe for all lessons in geology, but especially this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
You wanted to go north. You wanted to go north. Did we go north? No, we didn't.
It's all right. I liked what we saw. No. It's freaking water bottles.
Is mine leaking on you?
No,
I hope not.
It's mine. It just started.
I can take mine if you want.
Nah, I'll carry it. Well,
no.
I'll carry it.
No. Car keys and phone, that's the most important. Oh my God, all the stuff that 210 students have left over the years, it's like incredible.
Did you hear what happened to James? Sure he told you. And Steve?
Yeah, and Steve.
Are you good?
Yep, thank you. Just like your alley.
Shoulder okay?
Yes. My chest broke my fall.
Is your chest okay?
I think so. That'll be some good footage. Is camera okay?
Yep, I think so.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Turns out there's a benefit to putting on a little extra weight, Jordan. Bumbles bounce.